Hello everyone, it's Tommy and welcome back to another video for the Disney Save. Today we are going to be starting a brand new world in Tartosa. This is the world that comes with The Sims 4 wedding stories, and it was actually chosen by my patrons. They have the ability to pick the next Disney Save world whenever we start. Recently I had chosen for myself, I don't normally do this, but I really was having the itch to do Moonwood Mill, so that was my choice. And then I ran a bunch of polls, and this is the one that ended up winning. Just by a few people. I was very surprised because if I had to choose between kind of what some of the top options were, this is definitely the one that I was most excited to do, but I would have been happy with any result, to be honest. I was just really over the moon that this was the winner. I was in the mood for it. I feel like a lot of the movies that we're going to be doing in this world are some of my favorites and some that I'm really excited to bring to the save file. One of those movies, of course, being Hercules, is going to be a huge focal point for this world, and we're going to be starting with Hercules. That's also something that my patrons get to pick, is what movies we start with and kind of what order we go in. There are other films for Tartosa. It isn't the biggest world. I'd say it's like a medium-sized world. I believe it's about 12 lots or so. So we weren't able to fit a whole abundance of films, but with a replacement lot planned for the future of the world, there will be, I think, 4 movies total. If not, it's about 3. I wanted to first start out with the big well, there's many big residentials coming up, if I'm honest. There's gonna be a lot of Sims that live in this world, but one of the more important residentials is Hercules' home, and this is Hercules Mansion from the film. If you haven't seen Hercules in a while, this gets shown very quickly. There is like a fast clip of them going to this location later on, about halfway through the movie, and a lot of people are trying to like get over the gates because it's later on in the film when Hercules is a little bit more famous and he has like fans and paparazzi outside the gates, and then they kind of zoom over the whole mansion, and there's a few scenes that take place inside like the main living quarters, the front entrance of the home between him and Meg, and not really much else is shown, but it makes a great point for us to start for like a location where some of the main characters from Hercules can live. So this will probably include Hercules, Meg, Phil, and Pegasus. It's a really big lot for that many characters, I have to be honest. This is like an absolutely massive mansion, but it's not massive on the interior. Most of the actual structure of the home is this back building. The rest of it is just foundations and lots of marble and tiling and some sculptures and things to really make it feel grand and like it's an actual mansion. But for the most part, the general living is just going to be this main back house. 3 levels. Top level will be mostly bedrooms. There's that front entryway area that we do get shown in the film that I guess is kind of like the living room. It's also where just mostly people would hang out. And then I cut into the foundation to make it 3 stories, and the bottom floor has most of like the general living arrangements as far as the kitchen, some gym equipment so that Hercules can work out at his house, a bathhouse, and the larger bathroom, as well as a little stall barn for Pegasus. Before we get into the build today and talk about a lot of the details with everything going on here, I really wanted to take a moment to thank everybody so much for all of the love that I have received on my grand tour video for the Disney Save 2.0. If you missed it, please check it out. It is my most recent video before this one. It'll be linked down below. It's a super long video. It took me a long time to make, and it was just going over everything the Disney Save has to offer. I also launched the new download available over on Patreon. You do not have to be a patron to download the save file. I always like to note that for people, but it is available now. So if you haven't had a new version of the Disney Save, or you've been watching all of my videos and my speed builds and kind of waiting for a new version to drop, or looking forward to all the new characters, the Henford on Bagley characters, my new princesses, and everything from Sulani, Lilo and Stitch, everything from Moonwood Mill, it is all live and available. It's also on my gallery for download for my console simmers, or those of you who can't download a save file, an entire save file for whatever reason. That video was very long, but everybody seemed to really enjoy it. I don't know if it was the length, I don't know if it was just because there was so much going on in the video, but I've decided because of that, I am tentatively going to be making some of my speed builds a little bit longer. Normally, I would cut out things that I felt like, to me, maybe people didn't want to see as much, like maybe more repetitive plants and some foundation things, or like the roof. What I would normally do is make the video and then trim out things that I'm like, no one cares how I did this. Like, no one cares how I did this bathroom. No one cares how I did this roof. So I don't know. People have always told me, make your videos longer. I would watch you all day. It's very kind. I just didn't really believe it to be true. But that last video being as long as it is and how well it did, I might be wrong. I'm going to be making the next few speed builds a little longer than I normally would, but it is also in an effort to show you guys maybe some of those details that I really do cut from the footage. Because when you do these bigger builds, especially mansions, castles, and one of the reasons that I tend to do tour videos for some of my castles is because I just can't show everything. Like if I was to put every single room in and like really not cut down my footage at all, my videos would just be hours long, and I'm like, no one wants to see that, but maybe you do. So we're gonna find a happy medium here, and that's why today's video is a little bit of a longer one, but we're starting with a new era. It is a new year after all. I have not really gotten a chance to kind of chat with everybody and talk since I took my pre-Christmas break. I did get married. It was in the end of November. It was a beautiful, really happy, really sweet day. Everything went very smoothly. I was very happy with everything overall. I don't have anything bad to report or any like bad wedding drama. My husband and I basically planned a very small get-together wedding, like very town hall style, just so we could get everything done and be legally married. But we would like to do something a little bit more grand, maybe somewhere else in Europe in a few years. So that was kind of the plan. And so it was small. I had some family come into London for the first time. My sister came in. It was really cool to spend time with her, show her around. And it was just a good couple of weeks. Of course, after my wedding, I got sick, as I always do. I get sick a lot. And then it was Christmas time. We were really, celebrating lots of family days, lots of people coming over, still working on the save, but not as able to get as many videos out. And really, I just wanted to do a lot of work on getting the Disney Save 2.0 available for download. So I spent weeks just grinding out the new save file and updating everything. Unfortunately, the Sims themselves, the team, made it take longer than it should have by a lot. When they patched the game for The Sims 4 for rent, it completely destroyed my entire game. I was so distraught because I was on a good path to get the new save file out. Probably before Christmas was where I was headed timeline wise. And then they did the patch for rent. If you have The Sims running through the EA network and not Origin, which I didn't have the option, by the way. A lot of us have been forced to upgrade. It happened when I came to England. I'm not quite sure if it's I'm not quite sure why, but I was forced to upgrade, so quote unquote upgrade, to the EA platform rather than Origin. And I already disliked Origin a lot for a lot of reasons, but this one has been tenfold, 10 times worse because it makes it so that you can only play The Sims if you're online. I haven't found a way around this, and so you have to patch when a new patch comes out, even if it's game breaking, especially for people like me that make content and videos, and I was trying to get the save file out for you guys on time. I really had to patch. There's nothing I can do, and it completely totaled my game. I had to do a factory reset on my computer. I lost literally everything for YouTube, for Patreon, all of my assets, all of my thumbnails, everything I've ever done, except for, of course, the save file, because I did back it up right before I did a factory reset. I thought my computer was done. I thought maybe this is the end of the line for my good old gaming PC. I've had it for a little bit now, but it really doesn't struggle all that much with The Sims, and just in general, it doesn't really fail me. But I thought maybe something was wrong. It was aging out, so I thought I'd do a factory reset. Something went wrong in that process, lost everything on my computer, and then had to spend a couple weeks trying to get everything back together, get everything working, all the recording software, all the settings, all the stuff that has to get fixed when you do something like that. It's very annoying. And then I got back to a place where I could really record, so gotta make the tour video first. And now here we are with the new world Tartosa and starting some new movies and some new really exciting things. If you're a new subscriber because you discovered me from the last video, I just want to welcome you in. And normally what I do on my channel, I will go through and do a speed build for every single lot that we're going to be including in the new world. I also do create a sim videos for every single new sim, and then I also do create a sim videos for every townie. There's also lot replacement, so there can be extra builds and things, and then there's going to be bonus sims videos, which are create a sim videos that are dedicated to those extra characters that I talked about in the other video. And now that Tartosa has been chosen, a lot of me and my patrons will kind of get together and spitball some ideas in my private Discord of what this world could could look like, based on like the theming of just generally what the world is usually a good one. Some of the cultures that go here, although I try to be a little bit careful about that, because even though a lot of the Sims 4 worlds are based on like real world locations, it can be a lot more general than it is specific. So you can fit multiple cultures or multiple themes in the same space, even though those two regions might not be like close to one another, if that makes sense. So obviously this world being the wedding pack, it also has somewhat leaning Italian vibes, is like the way that this world is sort of designed. A lot of people, general consensus is, feels very like maybe coastal Italian. So obviously there's some films right away that we can pick that can go here, and one of my all-time favorite Disney movies, Hercules, was a big one that a lot of my patrons were very much set on and really excited to start, as well as me, because I love Meg, I love Hercules so much, and I think it's such an underrated film that even Disney doesn't really do a whole lot with. Like, I'd love to see some of those characters come to Dreamlight Valley or come in to other things inside the Disney parks. But overall, Disney really kind of avoids the usage of Hercules, and I think some of it is because it didn't do well, supposedly, when it came out. However, that's not going to stop me, and it's one of my favorites. I love Greece. I love Greek architecture. I love the gods. I love the Greek gods and mythology. It's some of my favorite things ever, even outside of Disney. So, really exciting to be doing this, and I have some big plans for some of the other characters from Hercules. There's going to be a pretty huge build or two coming, not just specifically for Hercules, but some other things that we're going to be doing for the world as well. But this was a really big one, Hercules Mansion. I did a little bit of research on like ancient Greek architecture to try to get some of this correct and really match it up with what you would see. In particular, things like colors, marbling, what kind of tiles were used, what kind of stones, bathhouses, general locations or layouts of homes, maybe some things that are just a little bit different, like how a kitchen would be laid out or what kind of ovens they used, that kind of thing, communal bath spaces. Those are the types of things and vibes I wanted to make sure I included. Roof adornments was a really big one for me here. I was trying to find literally anything in the build catalog, even if I had to mash a bunch of items together to give some like more traditional Greek roof adornments, but I just could not find anything that I was happy with, even like mixing a bunch of pieces together or putting in, like, I tried to use that seashell chair from City Living because I find that there's a lot of like that swirliness and that embossment sort of like look to the pieces, and it would just be great to have some of that in the catalog. But a lot of the times what I end up doing is going through and finding a few items that I can piece together kind of like a puzzle and then making something for myself, and that really creates some of the most like creative and special things about the save file and me as a builder. But for that, I just couldn't find anything I was happy with. However, when it comes to the interior, I was much more successful. Obviously, Romantic Garden is key for this pack. It is one of the only packs that we have ever gotten that has a lot of like the more Greek or Roman architecture, but that is an older stuff pack. It doesn't come with a ton of stuff, and I'm trying to also not overuse that pack because I know it's going to be heavily used, not just in Hercules builds, but there's one particular thing I will be building later on that is pretty much going to be Romantic Garden stuff galore. So I'm trying to save a lot of those, like the statues, the water fountains and things for that build specifically, so that they don't feel overused and it's like really special when you come to that lot. For this one, I had to try to see if I could maybe piece together some other things and other packs. And my fear whenever I do this, where I'm trying to build for like a world and a culture that we don't have by using other pieces from other worlds and other cultures that we do, is that I'm kind of missing the mark, or I'm like mismatching designs too much that it starts to not actually feel like it's Greek or feel like it's from Hercules. However, I feel like I was pretty successful for this time around. I basically ended up using a combination of some of the newer for rent items. A lot of them are obviously more Asian inspired, but they have like a lot of wood textures and marble textures that are appropriate, and they also had more detail to them, because I think that's something that's really particular about Greek architecture, is that when you look at literally everything that they have done, especially ancient Greek architecture, that's like what I mean when I'm referencing this, because that is when the movie takes place. It's ancient Grease, everything has something that is very highly detailed about it, or it's got like special colors. It's got something about it that gives it that extra oomph. So For Rent has a lot of furniture pieces that are like, they look more hand carved, there's more detail, there's more scrolling, and that really works out well when trying to do this build. Also Jungle Adventure, there's a lot of like highly detailed stone pieces in that pack, especially from the debug side, or I think the live edit side of the catalog, so definitely wanted to mix some of those in. I found this really perfect scrolling, this blue swirly tile that looks like the super iconic, and I would say like Hercules has a very particular look to it design wise compared to a lot of the Disney films. Like there are some very key things about how that movie was drawn and the art style that makes it so unique, and one of them is like the swirling feature that they do. I don't know how else to describe it. If you're either gonna know what I'm talking about or you're not, but if you look at like Hercules as a character, look at his ears and look at his chin, and there is this swirl motion that they use to draw round objects for the movie. You'll see it literally everywhere throughout the film, and also I think it's in the design of like his actual character logo. There's a Zeus sort of logo that he wears, or that is on Pegasus with like a lightning bolt and a cloud, and there is a swirl inside of that as well. So it's a common symbol that is used throughout the film. So I was ecstatic when I found these tiles that are literally identical and come in a really perfect color for this space. And I do want to talk about color a little bit in here, because I think when people think about ancient Greece, they are going to mostly think about white marble and very clean white stone. And that's not exactly accurate, and I really appreciate that Hercules went the extra mile to try to do something a little bit more accurate. They kind of do a mismatch in the film of what you think it's supposed to look like and what it actually used to look like. Using really bright royal blues and reds and really rich colors like gold was very common for Greek architecture, especially in painting with tiles, and on those like marble statues that you would recognize from the time period, they used to be painted. A lot of them. So there was this like weird scene where you go into the main entry of this home and it's just colored so much differently than I think our brains are programmed to think about this time period. Like when you walk into a mansion like this, especially looking at the outside and how the outside is so white and stone and clean cut, you walk in and don't expect the richer blues and golds and the deep red and all the tile and everything. But it is really more true to the time, is my understanding based off of research. And even those marble statues that you would see all over the place, and I have done some here, there's a few on the interior, especially in this front entryway, and then some at sort of like the gates, those would be painted, especially in deeper reds and blues. Of course, for the pack, because the Romantic Garden pack does not allow us to pick those nicer colors, the color swatches for that pack really range within like gardeny green sort of colors and some whites and maybe like a dirtier brown white statue. Then I have to mix those two ideas together, but that's okay because that's actually how Hercules did it. If you look at like a lot of the statues from the gardens when they're walking around or at his mansion, a lot of the statues are like a pearly white color, and then they got like the interior right, but they didn't get the statues right, is what I'm trying to describe here. So even though it looks a little funny, it's completely accurate to the film, and it all works out, because at the end of the day, even though I'm trying to do something that is inspired by ancient Greece, I'm more so trying to do something that's inspired by Hercules and match what I'm seeing specifically from that film. For the columns in here, I'm using a variety of columns. I think the go-to obviously would be to use the Romantic Garden columns, and those are perfect. They're stone, they're beautiful, they have a really, really great texture to them, but they are not perfect because they can only be sized up and down so tall. So if there's something that was added a long time ago with The Sims that gives you the ability to make these super massive tall pillars and columns. However, you cannot do them with all of them. They're not all made to stretch that tall. And of course, one of those ones is the Romantic Garden one. So they're locked within a certain height range that wasn't going to work universally across this build. I wanted really tall walls in here. It is a mansion. It's meant to feel very grand. So I needed taller wall spaces. And I also wanted to build that pillar space that you keep seeing off to the left that is just like this extra little tower. I ended up putting a fountain in there, but it's shown shown in the original build, and it is just as tall with just the one column height as the entire mansion. It's absolutely massive. So I needed a column that looked Greek inspired enough, but wasn't going to limit me as far as making it really, really tall. And I ended up using these wooden base game ones. The other thing I really like about them, especially on the inside of this area, is that they have some color swatches where like the tops and bottoms are a different color, which gives it that extra detail bit that you would really want to add to this. Because again, I'm trying to get as many pieces in here that have a lot of detail to them or something kind of extra as I possibly can. This front entry space really is going to serve as like the living room. That's all it's going to be. In the movie, when you come in here, Hercules is getting a portrait done on a vase, and he's standing on like this little platform thing, and the painter is standing there trying to get his likeness onto a vase. So I did a platform in the middle with a painting easel right next to it to mimic that, and you could sort of like recreate that as well, because I believe that that platform piece I used is from Get Famous, and it is used with something with like the fashion career, so you could have a sim like step up there theoretically. I'm not sure, I have to play test that a little bit. And then the only other things that are really shown in this space, it's very open, it's not meant to have a ton of furniture, there wasn't any fireplaces shown, there were some statues, marble statues, but really not a ton. It's just supposed to be this big, grand, sort of empty space. But when it comes to the Sims and being functional and like thinking about people using this inside of a save file, it has to be more useful than that. It can't just be this big open space, because then it ultimately just doesn't get used. So I put a few more couches and things down, general seating where your sim would come and kind of convene together. And there was also a table shown in the movie of a lot of stuff that is supposed to be like everything that Hercules is like selling for his newfound fame of being a hero. He has dolls and snow globes and little hats and things. And there's a table that has all of that stuff all over it that Meg sits in front of, so I added something to kind of represent that idea. The rest of the build is going to feel a little bit more what you might think of as like a traditional Greek ancient architecture, more stone, more of that white, but I wasn't scared to add some color, especially because that main floor has a lot of color, so I do drag some of that throughout the rest of the build. Particularly gold is a big one, trying to give this place a sense of lavishness. In the basement area that I dug into the foundation to create the general living space, and what I mean by that is really just like where your Sims will use a lot of items, like the kitchen, those things that you don't see in the film but we definitely have to have for a house. I thought, because I'm literally digging into the basement, I thought of it more as stone and more like building around what the space actually is. So more marble work, more basic stone, less color down here, but still some. We're definitely going to play with it a little bit. There were two things in particular that I really wanted to accomplish with this build that aren't shown in the film, but I knew needed to happen. One of them was the stable. Now, the stable isn't really shown in the video very much because I ended up doing it in like the exterior shell a lot, and then I thought about it and I ended up like just not recording for part of the video because I wasn't sure where to put the stable. There is an issue. I call it an issue because I just think that this doesn't make any sense, but it's not really. I've never seen anyone else complain about it. It's just me. Horses can't walk upstairs, which means you can never build a stable that is on a platform or up a set of stairs in order for them to get through. And that immediately created a huge challenge when doing this build because it's on a giant platform. That is what the entire house is. And it's massive, and I wanted to use a really big lot for this and make it look as close to the shell as it was supposed to look, which clearly didn't depict the stable. So trying to figure out where to fit that and have it make sense and not be on a foundation, really annoying. I ended up putting it on the right side ground floor. You'll see it more in the screenshots at the end of the video. It's a little bit smaller than I would have liked also, but because I had to work it into something that it really wouldn't have been here, or like maybe Disney didn't think about that in terms of like their shell, like where even was the stable on this, or maybe it's in a garden that's not even near the house, which is more likely. I had to make it fit inside the space. So it's tucked sort of partially into the foundation on the right-hand side of the mansion on the ground floor. And it's a little smaller than I would have liked, but the compromise is I will be building a bigger stable for Pegasus at another location that we'll be doing for a future build coming up kind of rather soon. It is one of the next coming up Hercules builds. So he will get more space. It is just enough for him to be happy, I would say, especially especially considering that he does not have to share it with any other characters. There is only like 4 or so characters living here, even though I think that there would be more. There would be servants and there would be like castle staff, if you will, which is something I implement a lot. I do not plan to implement it for this household. I think that just having this family live here, especially because no other people are shown, and I can't even like pull people from the background and like call them castle staff or whatever. This house would do well with like a few maids and butlers that you can call in and like have that NPC system enabled due to the size and just like generally cleaning and things like that. Taking care of Pegasus. Maybe Phil could do a little bit of that. And then the other thing I really wanted this place to have was a very lavish bathhouse and gym. Because it's Hercules, because he needs an area to really like exercise and practice, and I wanted it to be at his house. As much as we can like do that in other spaces and have maybe a community lot, I really wanted him to also have that space within his own home. And if he has a mansion, then theoretically he should have enough room to do so. So this downstairs area is largely dedicated to that. And it does mean that I have to use some of the more modern equipment. There's no getting around it. It's not like we have a medieval pack or any type of pack that really gives you some gym equipment that would be considered better for like the time period of this movie. It's just not possible. And as much as I could layer on like lots of objects and maybe try to tool it a little bit so that I can hide how modern some of the stuff looks, I feel like for gym equipment, there's almost just no doing it perfectly. There's other objects where I really try that. Like I did a bakery in Henford on Bagley and I hated how modern looking, because it was Brave themed and I was like thinking about the time period of Brave, I hated how modern looking the cafe station is inside of the Brave bakery. It's like glass and it just looks like something you'd see anywhere. And I wanted it to fit the build a little more, maybe make it made out of wood, have it really fit the aesthetic of the rest of the build. It has like a medieval vibe in there, Scottish castle vibe. So I did spend a lot of time covering up that object with other objects, still making it functional, but making it look completely like something else. And that works for that because it's like one object inside a space where that is really the dedicated reason for going there. But this has a lot going on and I was like, I cannot possibly cover up the modern looking gym equipment, like 8 pieces of it inside of this build, and then it would just be a crazy high object count and people really wouldn't like that. So I did leave it. Sorry, but it is what it is. Hopefully we will get that medieval pack that I always speak about, but even if we did, I don't think they're going to focus on doing things like less modern looking gym equipment personally. It'll be a little bit more architecture based, if anything, which is the new castle kit that just came out too. That is definitely something I will be purchasing for the save file and updating, especially my little Brave Scottish castle. Could definitely use some of the stuff from that. I will be picking it up probably very soon here. I have to say, having that get released, as much as I am excited about it, and I was like decently happy enough with everything that they put into the kit, since it is like a builder's kit, like it's really up my alley, but it just makes me so worried that we'll never get anything else like it. I always have this thing where I'm like, if The Sims does it in a different pack, they're almost like mentally checking off a box where they're like, well, now we've done that topic, so we can never come back to it. And I know that's not completely true, and they've done it before where like they come back to certain themes or certain cultures or whatever in a different way, in a different pack. So that's not entirely true, but I'm always worried that that is the case. Like that's the closest we'll ever get to a medieval pack, and that would be really sad because I just desperately need it. Even more, I think, than I need fairies. Like fairies would be really nice to have, but I really, really need a medieval pack and everything that comes with it, and all of like the objects that would look more old school, like making something like a more medieval style bathtub, shower, whatever would come, a stove, a cooking station that has like a cauldron on it and a pot for an open flame instead of having a traditional stove, chamber pot style like toilets, as well as the cas, and like any type of, I would in particular love to see like what dresses, medieval women's dresses they could come up with for that would be super helpful for me. So even though yes, that pack is exciting, I am always worried. I'm like, hopefully we get some more of that in the future. I really do need it. With the downstairs and the big open middle part, that is going to be the gym. So that's like the last portion that I'm doing in the video. I wanted to do the bathhouse first. It's a bathhouse, but it is also a pool, and it works because it is a part of like exercising. You can swim and that helps with the athletic part of it, but you can't get clean from a pool in The Sims 4, I don't believe, so you wouldn't actually get the bathing aspect if you were going to use use it that way. I wanted it to look more like a traditional bathhouse with like the big open communal bathing area, but I also need it to function in a space that your Sims can actually get clean. So I did tuck some hidden showers away on like one of the walls in the bathing area. The other thing is that apparently, from what I read, Greek bathrooms in general, like where you would use the bathroom, was communal in some places. So I just did this big open communal space. I have to play test it a little bit and see how Sims are going to react to that. I think that for the most part they'll be fine, but your Sims do tend to get embarrassed if they are trying to like bathe or shower in front or use the bathroom in front of another Sim. So having it be like the big open archways and having it just be communal like that, I don't know if it'll work, but also only 4 Sims live here. So they probably won't cross paths that much within this space that it would conflict. And a lot of times they usually just tell the other Sims to get out of the bathroom. So you can usually still use the bathrooms even if they're more exposed like that. They just have to like wait until the other Sims move. So that's how I did it for now. Hopefully I can still use it that way because I think it's really pretty and a lot more accurate to like what you would actually see here. And I love that it's right off of the bathing area, and then I love that the gym is right there. So you can kind of do all 3 things right there together. There's a kitchen. You've got literally everything you need to live comfortably in this basement. The upstairs floors are more just for like sleeping and just general aesthetic. The place looks a lot nicer, I would say, on the upper floors, especially the bedrooms. I'm excited for us to get to that portion of the video because I love how some of them turned out. You'll notice I'm using quite a bit more tool in this than I normally do, but the truth is I usually use it just about this much. I just usually cut out everything related to tool in the video because sometimes I think it confuses people. It might make you think that I am using mods to do the build or that you need CC or mods in order to use this build. And I mean, I am technically using a mod to build, but you don't need any mods if you were to download this off the gallery or download my save file. So I think if you're not familiar with what tool is, you see that pop up and you might be confused, which is why I sometimes get rid of it. But I don't want to be dishonest either. I am using it and I do use it. I'm not super skilled at it. I don't know like how to use it in great detail. That's something that I'm kind of hoping I can find some time for this year, is like learning how to do it a little bit better. I know just enough to get me by and really do like the very basic things that I want to do, because to be honest with you, I don't want to like completely tool my save file and make it like very tool heavy. I think I already build with like a lot of objects and a lot of really big builds that are very detailed, and I kind of leave no stone unturned. Like everything has something going on, every corner, every wall has like something on it. So to add tool to that might just be a little bit too much, but I still like to use it to put things into place that I cannot normally put them there. Like for example, columns, which are locked to the grid in The Sims 4. And that's really annoying when you're trying to use like a big bulky column in a bedroom perhaps. Especially in the bedrooms, I wanted to use the columns as like faux pillars attached to the ends of the marble sort of looking beds that I was trying to make, like really make these very grand beds that looked like they had their own pillars attached to them. And we have some of those in the catalog, but a lot of them are wooden, a lot of them are a little bit modern, and they just weren't going to fit the aesthetic of this build. So I wanted to create something, but because the columns are locked to the grid, it's tough and it just wouldn't fit perfectly around like the shape of the beds and the sizing that they were and everything. So if you use a little bit of tool, you can kind of nudge them where you need them to go. And I do basic stuff like that. That's really all I'm doing with tool. Meg and Hercules are going to be sharing one room in the upstairs area. There's 4 up here. Phil is going to have another one. Because it's a mansion, I tried to think of it more like the rooms would be very similar to one another, similar furniture and pieces. And I think if you think about like maybe ancient bedrooms in general, not just for this culture, but any of them, you might not think about like it being super characteristic, like super, I'm not quite sure how to say this, but you wouldn't want it to be super detailed to the specific person that lives in the room, because it's almost like there wouldn't be enough things available. Like you might have some little flowers and knickknacks and sort of things that really show whose space it is here and there, but it's not going to feel like a lived-in modern home. It's going to be more just luxuries of living in a mansion. You've got your fireplace, your big grand bed, and then you can put some small details inside the space. Like for Phil's room, I did a lot of trophies, indicating that he has been like a well-awarded trainer for other Olympians in the past. He has other trophies and awards from training them previously, so he has some of those in his space. And then for Hercules and Meg's room, I did some pops of purple to kind of like showcase Meg a little bit in creating her character, because of course the next video is going going to be the creative sim for today's speed build, which will be the household that lives here, Meg and Hercules and Phil and Pegasus. I was thinking about Meg a lot, and I've done a lot of research on her, and like as much as I love her personality and her character, and I think she's very unique inside of Disney, you don't really know much about her as far as like her likes and interests. A lot of the movie she spends as like a servant of Hades, so she doesn't really have time to pinpoint likes and dislikes. The only thing I could come up with is that obviously she has a string of bad romances, so you could say she was like formerly boy crazy, but even now it doesn't seem like that would necessarily be the case, especially in her age. She doesn't really reference liking anything. She doesn't really reference disliking anything either. Like it's not like we see her love a certain thing and so then I can like bring it into her space. She just has a lot of personality and quirks that make her very specific, but she doesn't have many interests that are shown. Hercules has a little bit more, like obviously we know he's athletic, he's very kind, but as far as hobbies individually, like especially Meg, there just was almost nothing for me to go off of, so I decided to go with like her aesthetic a little bit more. Drag in some purple flowers, some pretty sort of decorative items. Because there is 4 bedrooms up here, and they're all sort of very similar, like I've done the repetitive theming of the gold curtains and the bigger columns. I wanted it to be very open. Those archways are kind of serving as windows, and then the big luxurious white beds. Some of the rooms have really pretty marble fireplaces with some of the sides down romantic garden stuff statues kind of like attached to the side to make them themed a little bit better within the space. But they are generic enough bedrooms that you could really have Meg and Hercules live in whichever one you prefer. If you want it to face like the outward side of the home or be tucked away more in the corner, you can pick. Additionally, up here there is one more bathroom space that has a normal bathtub that you can use. That was in the effort to make it feel more usable inside here, so you don't have to go all the way to the basement floor to use the bathroom, especially for Sims that might need it in the middle of the night kind of deal. Trying to think about the flow of the house and make sure everything feels like it'll play really well. With that being said, I wanted to let you guys know that in the past for the save file, when I am done with a world, and I'm not anywhere close to being done with Tartosa by the way, so don't think that is why I'm bringing this up, but I wanted to say that usually when I'm done with a world, I have my patrons pick the next one, we move on, and I've done a few worlds in a row, and then I release the Disney Save 2.0. So I haven't been keeping up on releasing new builds, new characters, and content sort of as they're available. I really wait till the end and kind of like, as I did this past Christmas, play tested in a rather large bulk and waited. I'm going to be doing my best this year to not do it that way. I would like to release all of Tartosa as a big Disney save file update once it's finished before moving on to the next world that my patrons pick, and all of the characters and things like that, as well as make sure they're on the gallery and everything's playtested and available pretty much within a week or 2 after the videos are finished. So hopefully that's something you guys can get to look forward to. I stopped doing that, if I'm honest with you guys, because the Sims patching and updating was driving me so crazy and breaking everything that I was doing so often that I felt like I was having to go back and fix things repetitively enough anyway that it didn't feel worth it for me to constantly be doing that. But I'm gonna try something new this year. We're trying a lot of new things, longer videos and some newer ideas, trying to keep track of the save file a little bit better so it can be more readily available. I think people are generally really kind about like how long it takes me to do the save file, but there is some frustration every once in a while, and I'd like to avoid that. Even though it'll always take me, like I'll always only be able to go as fast with the save as I'm happy with the content that's coming out. So if things take me a little longer, they just simply will. There's no really getting around that. I would like to release the save in increments that I feel like are healthy for me and for everybody else to be able to actually play with everything. So that's my current goal in 2024, regular updates to the save file, which means Tartosa could be available within a few months as I sort of finish it. I don't know currently how long it's going to take because this world has a few big builds to do, and that always kind of throws me off timing wise. I have a few things planned in the new year. There's some things going on. I might be doing some travel, so there could be, I don't know, we'll see, but I'll try to keep you guys updated. Let me know if you enjoyed the longer style speed build video. My create a Sims will always be pretty much the same length because that's just how long it takes to make a sim. If there's more in the video, then obviously it'll be a little longer, but I can add some extra footage to the speed build. So if you guys like it, definitely let me know so I feel encouraged to do this and make sure that it is the right thing for the channel and for you guys as viewers. I'm excited excited to show you what else we are doing for Tartosa. A lot of the Hercules builds are going to be some of my favorites for this world. It was definitely what I was most excited to do in Tartosa, but I have some other really exciting things coming up, and if you could take a guess as well down below. No patrons, you cannot guess because you already know, so patrons disqualified. Everybody else, take a guess of some of the things you'd like to see for this world or are hopefully coming up. And that is Hercules Mansion. There will be a creative sim following in a few days. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support the Disney Save on Patreon, you can do so by clicking the link in my description box down below or the one at the end of the video. And I will talk to you all in the next one.